For nearly 2 centuries, England had fought to survive. It had endured devastating Viking invasions, witnessed the rise and fall of powerful kingdoms, and slowly united under a single crown. After generations of conflict, the country had finally begun to enjoy a rare period of peace. Villages prospered, trade flourished, and families once again looked toward the future with hope. To the people of England, it seemed the darkest chapters of their history were finally behind them. But they had no idea that an even greater storm was already beginning to gather. London had become the heart of the kingdom. Its markets were filled with traders from across Europe. Its churches echoed with prayer, and its royal court governed a nation that had grown stronger than ever before. Yet beneath this calm and prosperous surface lay a dangerous uncertainty. England's question of who would succeed him became impossible to ignore. King Edward, later remembered as Edward the Confessor, had ruled England for more than 2 decades. He was respected for his wisdom, his deep religious devotion, and the stability he had brought to the kingdom. Despite all he had achieved, one problem remained unsolved. Edward had no surviving child to inherit his throne. As his strength faded, so too did the certainty of England's future. Without a clear successor, powerful men across Europe began looking toward the English crown with growing ambition. Edward's approaching death created more than uncertainty, it sparked a struggle for power. In England, Harald Godwinson believed his years of loyal service made him the rightful heir. Across the English Channel, William, Duke of Normandy, stated that Edward had once promised him the throne. Far to the north, the legendary Viking king Harald Hardrada also believed he possessed a legitimate claim. 3 ambitious rulers, each convinced that destiny had chosen them to wear England's crown. Before long, those competing claims would drag an entire nation into war. On the 5th of January 1066, King Edward died. Across England, church bells rang in mourning, as the nation prepared to bury a king whose peaceful reign had lasted more than 20 years. Yet even before the final prayers had faded, attention turned to a far more urgent question. Who would rule England now? The answer had to come quickly, because hesitation could invite chaos, rebellion, or even invasion from abroad. On the following day, Harald Godwinson was crowned King of England. To the English nobles gathered inside Westminster Abbey, the succession appeared settled. Their kingdom had a new ruler, and life could continue as normal. But beyond England's shores, 2 powerful men saw the coronation not as a conclusion, but as a betrayal. As messengers carried news across the sea, both William of Normandy and Harald Hardrada began preparing for war. England had crowned its king, but it had also awakened its enemies. The news crossed the English Channel with remarkable speed. When Duke William of Normandy learned that Harald Godwinson had been crowned King of England, he was furious.
"This crown is mine by right! England will be mine!"
For years, William had believed that Edward the Confessor had promised him the English throne. He also claimed that Harold himself had once sworn an oath to support that promise. To William, Harold was not England's rightful king. He was a man who had broken his word and stolen a crown. From that moment onward, William no longer prepared for diplomacy. He prepared for conquest. William understood that invading England would require far more than courage. Crossing the Channel with an army was an enormous undertaking, demanding careful planning, money, supplies, and the support of powerful nobles.
"Secure the coast, and England will be ours."
He summoned his closest advisors, military commanders, and church leaders. Together they planned one of the most ambitious invasions medieval Europe had ever seen. Every detail mattered, because failure would not simply cost William his dream, it could destroy everything he had built in Normandy.
A wise choice, my lord. The terrain is favorable. Scribes, note the supply lines from Normandy.
William knew that armies could not swim across the sea. To carry thousands of soldiers, horses, weapons, and supplies, he needed a fleet unlike anything Normandy had assembled before. Across the duchy, forests echoed with the sound of axes as great oak trees were felled for shipbuilding. Skilled craftsmen worked day and night, transforming timber into vessels that would soon carry an army toward destiny. Every hammer strike brought England one step closer to invasion. William's call spread far beyond Normandy. Knights, archers, and experienced warriors arrived from neighboring regions, drawn by promises of land, wealth, and honor. Some came out of loyalty, others in search of fortune. Together they formed an army unlike any William had commanded before. Each man understood the risks ahead, but they also knew that victory in England could change their lives forever. William sought more than soldiers. He wanted legitimacy. He appealed to the Pope, arguing that Harold had broken a sacred oath and unlawfully claimed the English throne. The Pope's support gave William's campaign enormous moral and political weight. To many across Europe, the invasion was no longer seen as simple ambition. It had become a mission blessed by the Church. That endorsement encouraged even more warriors to join William's cause. By the end of the summer, William's preparations were complete. His fleet was ready, his army was assembled, his commanders waited only for favorable winds to carry them across the Channel. Every passing day tested their patience, but William never abandoned his goal. Somewhere beyond the horizon lay England, and a crown he believed was rightfully his. The invasion had not yet begun, but history was already moving toward one of its most decisive moments. King Harold knew that William would come. Every report arriving from across the Channel spoke of ships being built, soldiers gathering, an invasion unlike anything England had faced before. Refusing to be caught by surprise, Harold positioned his army along the southern coastline. Day after day, his men kept watch over the sea, waiting for sails to appear on the horizon. But the days turned into weeks, and the invasion never came. Unknown to Harold, nature itself had delayed William's plans. Across the Channel, William's army was ready to sail. His fleet stood prepared, his soldiers waited, and every plan had been carefully made. Yet one enemy remained beyond anyone's control. The wind refused to cooperate. For weeks, powerful northern winds prevented the Norman ships from crossing the Channel. William could do nothing but wait, hoping that nature would eventually favor his ambition. Maintaining an army in the field was expensive, and England's harvest could not wait forever. As the weeks passed without any sign of William, Harold faced a difficult decision. His soldiers needed to return home to gather food before winter arrived. Reluctantly, he dismissed much of his army, believing there was still time before the Norman invasion would begin. It was a practical decision, but history would soon prove how costly that choice could become. While England watched the south, another danger was gathering in the north. Harald Hardrada, the formidable king of Norway, believed he too had a rightful claim to the English throne. Renowned across Europe as one of the greatest warriors of his age, Hardrada had spent a lifetime fighting in distant lands. Now, with a vast fleet at his command, he turned his attention toward England. Harold had been expecting one invasion. He was about to face two. In September 1066, Harald Hardrada launched one of the largest Viking invasions England had seen in generations. Hundreds of longships carried thousands of seasoned warriors across the North Sea. Many believed the great age of the Vikings had already passed. Harold intended to prove them wrong. His destination was northern England, where allies were already waiting to support his campaign. As Harald Hardrada landed in northern England, the kingdom's carefully prepared defenses began to unravel. Harold Godwinson had concentrated his attention on the Channel, expecting William's attack from the south. Instead, the first invasion came from the north. England now faced its greatest military crisis in generations, and every decision Harold made from this moment onward would shape the future of the nation. Within days, two armies would collide near the city of York. The outcome would surprise all of Europe. But even victory would come at a terrible price. Because William was still waiting across the sea. Harald Hardrada wasted no time. The moment his army landed, it began advancing toward one of England's most important cities, York. For centuries, York had stood as the gateway to northern England, controlling vital roads, trade routes, and military movements. Whoever controlled York held enormous influence over the north. Hardrada understood this perfectly. If the city fell, much of northern England could soon follow. Harold Godwinson was still hundreds of miles away in southern England. Until he could arrive, the defense of the north rested on two powerful earls, Edwin of Mercia and Morcar of Northumbria. Together they assembled every available soldier they could find. Their objective was simple: stop the Viking advance before it reached York. But standing in their path was one of the most experienced commanders in Europe. On the 20th of September, the two armies met near the village of Fulford, just outside York. The fighting was fierce from the very beginning. Viking warriors pushed relentlessly against the English lines, using years of battlefield experience to exploit weaknesses in their enemy's formation. As the battle wore on, the English defense began to collapse beneath the pressure. By the end of the day, the Vikings had won a decisive victory. Edwin and Morcar escaped with what remained of their forces, but York now stood exposed. For Harald Hardrada, it was exactly the beginning he had hoped for. His army had defeated England's northern defenders, and the city had little choice but to negotiate. News of the disaster spread south with incredible speed. When the news reached King Harold, the situation changed instantly. William still waited across the Channel, but another enemy had already invaded England. Harold faced an impossible choice: remain in the south and risk losing the north, or march north to confront Harald Hardrada, leaving the southern coast exposed if William chose that very moment to cross the sea. Every option carried enormous risk. Harold made his decision without hesitation. Gathering his finest housecarls and every available soldier, he ordered an immediate march north. The journey would cover nearly 200 miles in only a matter of days, a remarkable feat for any medieval army. Speed would be Harold's greatest weapon. If he could reach the Vikings before they expected him, he might still save the kingdom. But every mile north also carried him farther away from the enemy waiting across the Channel. The race had begun. One king marched north to save his kingdom. Another waited across the sea for the perfect moment to strike. Neither realized that within weeks, both armies would shape the future of England forever.